Think about the funniest person in your family. Not the one who tells the best jokes, the one who makes the whole room lose it at Christmas dinner. The one who turns a traffic jam into a stand-up set. The one your parents call when they need cheering up. Now think about where they fall in the family lineup. There's a very good chance they're the youngest. And here's the thing, this isn't a coincidence. It's not a personality quirk. It's not even, strictly speaking, their choice. It is the predictable, almost mechanical output of a very specific set of family dynamics. That played out long before they ever learned to tell a joke. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why the last-born child almost had to become funny, and what that comedy has been quietly doing for them their entire life. Let's draw the portrait first. The youngest child in a family tends to move through the world in a particular way. They are warm, socially magnetic, creative, and here's the important one, almost pathologically entertaining. They are the ones who walk into a room and read it before they've even taken off their coat. They're quick, they're flexible. They know how to make people like them without ever seeming like they're trying. And they are, statistically, wildly overrepresented in comedy. A 2012 study of professional comedians found that lastborns were the most likely birth position to pursue performance and humor as a career. When you scan the names Jim Carrey, Eddie Murphy, Stephen Colbert, Billy Crystal, Drew Carey, Ellen DeGeneres, you start to see a pattern that looks less like coincidence and more like a law of family physics. But we're not here to make a list of famous lastborns. We're here to understand why, at a psychological level so precise, that when you finish watching this, you will look at the youngest person you know and see something completely different. Because the youngest child's humor isn't just a personality trait. It's a survival strategy that was quietly built in childhood, brick by brick, in response to a very specific kind of pressure. To understand the youngest child, you have to start with Alfred Adler. Adler, Freud's brilliant, frequently forgotten contemporary, was the first psychologist to take birth order seriously as a developmental force. His central insight was elegant. The position you occupy in the family is the environment you grow up in. It shapes your anxieties, your strategies, your sense of what you have to offer the world. And the youngest child grows up in a very particular environment. They enter a family that is already full. Every role has been taken. The responsible one? The older sibling claimed it. The achiever? That spot belongs to the child who did everything first. The rebel, the peacemaker, the scholar. By the time the youngest arrives, the psychological real estate of the family is largely developed. So what do you do when all the obvious territories are occupied? You find a new one. You become the entertainer. Think about the family dynamics from the youngest child's perspective. They are surrounded by people who are bigger, more competent, more experienced. Older siblings can read, can tie their shoes, can stay up late. The youngest child is perpetually the one who can't quite keep up, and they know it. This creates what Adler called a deep sense of inferiority. Not in a tragic sense, in a motivating one. The question the youngest child is quietly solving from their earliest years is, what can I do that nobody else here can do? And what they discover, often by accident, often to enormous reward, is that they can make people laugh. Here's where it gets precise. When a toddler does something accidentally funny and the whole family erupts, the older siblings, the parents, everyone, that child receives something neurologically powerful. Not just attention, disproportionate attention. The entire family, focused completely on them, in a moment of genuine delight. That is intoxicating. And it is reinforcing in a way that shapes behavior for decades. And so they practice. They observe people. They learn to read the room. They develop a sensitivity to social dynamics that is, frankly, extraordinary. Because for them, reading a room is not a social skill. It's a survival skill. It's the thing that tells them when to perform and what will land. Kevin Leman, in his landmark work, The Birth Order Book, describes the youngest child as someone who has essentially been conducting a 2-4 hour a day social experiment their entire childhood, watching every interaction in the family, cataloging what works, discarding what doesn't. By adulthood, they don't think about this anymore. It's automatic. It's who they are. But it started as strategy. Frank Sulloway's research adds another dimension that is almost uncomfortable in how clearly it explains things. In Born to Rebel, Sulloway analyzed thousands of historical figures across centuries and found that birth order is one of the most consistent predictors of personality and social role. His finding about lastborns is specific. They are more likely to be agreeable, more likely to take social risks, and more likely to use charm and humor as tools for status and influence. Why social risks? Because lastborns have a different relationship to failure than firstborns do. The firstborn child, who arrived when parents were anxious and inexperienced, typically grows up under a microscope. Their mistakes feel weighty. They develop a cautious, perfectionist orientation toward the world. The youngest child grew up with parents who had already relaxed, who had already made their big parenting mistakes on the older children, who were, by the time the last one arrived, a little more lenient, a little more amused, a little more willing to let things go. This means the youngest child learns, early, that taking a risk, saying the thing, making the face, going for the joke, doesn't carry catastrophic consequences. If it doesn't land, everyone moves on. And if it does land, the whole room is yours. Here's where we have to pause. Because every gift that birth order gives you is also, quietly, a cage. The youngest child who learned to use humor as currency for love and attention grows into an adult who may not know how to ask for what they need without being funny, who turns to a joke in the middle of a serious conversation. Not because they don't take it seriously, but because vulnerability without humor is terrifying. Because the last time they were small and serious, nobody really noticed. They are the adult who makes everyone else feel better, while quietly deflecting any real inquiry into their own pain. Are you okay? I'm fine. Did I ever tell you about the time? The comedian's stage is also a shield. Adler would recognize this immediately. The strategy that worked perfectly at age 6, be funny, be loved, doesn't scale to adulthood without cost. The need to perform can outlast the conditions that created it. And the person who was never allowed to be the serious one in the family sometimes doesn't know how to be taken seriously, even when they desperately need to be. This is not a flaw in the youngest child's character. It is the entirely logical consequence of what they were taught, very early, that they had to offer. Here is what I want you to hold on to. If you are a youngest child watching this, if you recognized yourself in any of it, your humor is real. The warmth it creates is real. The connection it builds is real. None of that is a performance. Not anymore. But you are allowed to be more than the funny one. You are allowed to be the person who says, I'm actually not okay right now, without a punchline to soften it. You are allowed to need things without earning them first. You are allowed to take up serious space in rooms. And if you are a parent watching this, or an older sibling, the youngest person in your family may be telling you something real in the middle of every joke. It might be worth pausing, sometimes, to ask what's underneath it. Understanding why you became who you are is not the same as being trapped by it. It is, in fact, the beginning of choosing something different. Tag your youngest sibling in this and see if they laugh or go suspiciously quiet.